Everybody. Sarah with Harrisburg Project. I logged on just a little bit early, so we're going to wait a few minutes before we get started. Today we're going to go over Fund E claims. So our public orphans today. I did upload your handout. Let's see what they call it. I can't remember. Materials is what they call it. We have a big group today. So I want to give everybody time to get logged in. Okay. It is 9 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. We've got a pretty good group logged in so far. So my name is Sarah. I work for Harrisburg Project. I'm the lead trainer here. If you have not attended a training with us before, you can ask questions during the session. I will answer those as I see them in the questions pod, so you're going to want to use that. Also, I uploaded your handout for today. It's in the materials section in GoToWebinar, so you can get that. If you don't want to print it out, you don't have to. And then also, we will probably be here over an hour today, so just to let you know, but we already did the all claims session, which includes Fund E, so if you're not able to stay the whole time, you can always go back and watch that recording. We will also have this recording up as well here, and probably by the end of the week, we'll have it up under Hot Topics on our website. So again, I know it's a long session and it's a lot to ask to devote this time of year, that kind of time. So we are recording today again, so you will be able to access it again if you need to. So I think that's all the housekeeping items, and it looks like our logins have slowed just a little bit, so we will go ahead and start on the material. So today we're going to talk about the due dates for this. We are just talking about Fund E today. It simplifies things. It's a lot easier to follow than going through the all claims, of course, because we're just going to talk about one thing today. We'll talk about how you identify your youth and care students. Even though it's a little late to be doing that, we're still going to talk about it so you understand it. We'll talk about the 3 ways that you send in the claim, whether you know what the figure is and you're going to use the manual or calendar method, or whether we're going to go through and use the key components of the claim to determine what the cost is and use the program method. And then we'll go through actually calculating the claim and then the reimbursement reports that are available for you once you complete the process. So as far as when this data is due, your Fund Code E is going to be due June 15th this year. What that means is after June 15th, you cannot add any more Fund E records. Okay, we're a little bit limited now on what you can add anyway. As some of you may know, we had that May 1st deadline. So anything that is active, that was active before March 2nd, will not be able to be added anyway. So right now you're really looking at begin dates of March 2nd or after. You can add Fund E records, but after June 15th, you won't be able to do that. We will have through July 31st the Fund E claims corrections. So what that means is you will have your orphanage records added. You can work on the claims through July 31st if you need to. And so what I want to say about that is when we say corrections, that means that you can do anything you need to. So if those figures are blank on June 15th, that's okay. We do not want you to go in and put some kind of a placeholder to eliminate errors or because you think you have to have something in the claims on June 15th. You do not have to have anything entered. You don't need a placeholder. A lot of times that can end in a disaster. So you may forget to go back and fix that. Sometimes people will just put in like, $500 as a placeholder, forget to go back and actually put the real claim in, and then they miss out on a lot of funding. So we don't want you to do that. So what you need to do is just concentrate. If you are not going to be done with claims on June 15th, just make sure that you are by July 31st. Okay. So don't create busy work or problems for yourself by going in and putting in fake data just to say you're in corrections. You're in corrections whether it's 0 or a placeholder or even if it's done. So if it's completed and you go back and find a mistake, we're still in corrections. So you don't have to have any claims data entered on June 15th. You just can't add any Fund E claims after that date. So you can't add an approval record. Adding the approval record is what creates the claim. Okay. So no Fund E additions after June 15th. We're talking about E today. It is D, E, and F. You cannot add D, E, or F regular term records after that date. Again, today we're going to focus on Fund E. Okay. I don't have any questions so far, so that's good. So how do you identify these orphanage students that we're talking about? As I mentioned earlier, it's a little late in the game to be doing this. It doesn't mean you won't have students, though. We did just get our April DCFS file loaded yesterday, so you guys may be seeing some changes, some errors, and things like that on your data. This list updates nightly. So it's 2 different files that are used. This just shows if they have DCFS involvement. So this list, again, will update nightly. So it looks at one file to see involvement. Our monthly file has the living arrangement in it, and so that is why we're a month behind on that, on the error checking. All right, I have a Fund E student that needed to have an NDAD done. I didn't get the paperwork until after May 1st. Now I have an error on her. I want to make sure I was claiming her correctly. Should I just delete that entry that has the error? You probably want to have us look at it. We may just have to put it back how it was before the May 1st due date. So without looking at it, I don't want to tell you anything. Okay. Okay, and then as far as your AFR goes, it says it's not back yet for the district. We use the previous year. So are you looking for 2026 or 2025? You want to use fiscal year 2025. And it should be available. To answer your question, 2025 is not back yet. Okay, but yes, to answer your question, you will be okay to work on it after June 15th in the corrections period. Lots of people have to do that. The due date is really early, in my opinion. June 15th is a very early due date. I was working yesterday doing a one-to-one with someone on claims, and their last day of school was June 2nd. So, that doesn't leave a lot of time to work on things. So, but yes, you can work on the claim after the fact. So to identify youth and care students, again, this list updates nightly. So I would recommend throughout the school year that you're looking at it, depending on the size of your district, maybe once a week, maybe once a month. If you have 100 special ed kids, once a month's probably good. If you have 4,000 special ed kids, you probably need to be looking at it more frequently. So you decide what works for you. What you're going to see under this listing is going to be students that could be special ed, they could be regular ed. So it's going to be any students that are enrolled in your district that have DCFS involvement. What your job then is to determine, should they be in iStar and how should they be coded? So first of all, if you look at that listing and in the iStar fund code, it's blank, and you think that student has an IEP, that means they're not an iStar at all. Okay, so not only should they be an I-STAR, but if they are a public student, they should be coded as an E. If they are a private day student, so therapeutic day, they should possibly be coded as an F as in Frank. Now, if you do look and see fund codes, if you see an X, an A, or an S as in Sam, then that's an indication that that student could possibly qualify for orphanage. You need to change their fund code to an E. If you see a B as in boy in the listing, that's an indication you should possibly change them to F as in Frank. Okay? If you make the change and you get eligibility errors on the approval record, send us a list of the sysids that have those errors. This is only if they have errors, okay? So if you change them to an orphanage code of E or F and you get eligibility errors, send us to support a list of those sysids and ask us to check the file for eligibility. So things can change that cause errors, and sometimes we have to get overrides from ISB. So sometimes the child really may qualify, but say, for example, they've had a name change, or sometimes the data is just not very good between the two systems. So maybe DCFS may have their date of birth off by a day. So we can't determine between the systems if it's the right child or not. So what we look at is to see, is the child on the file, on the DCFS file? If they are, is there a reason why they are coming back as ineligible? Is it the fact that they don't have a valid living arrangement that qualifies them? If so, we will tell you. Or is their last name spelled differently between the systems and they do qualify and we need to get an ISB override? Okay, so is my audio cutting out for everybody? Okay. They're saying no. So it might be your bandwidth there. Okay, so what we found is sometimes when I talk about this to a big group like we have today, some people will just send us sysids and say, hey, can you check these? You need to go ahead and change them and see if you're going to get errors or not. It doesn't mean you're always going to get the errors, okay? Also, if you don't see them on this list, then they are not going to qualify as an orphan, okay? So if they're enrolled in your district, they should be on this list if they have DCFS involvement. So they would have to be enrolled. This listing comes from SIS and we get it nightly. So it updates every night. Okay. As I said earlier, it's a little late in the game to be doing this, but you still could be adding students after March 2nd as Fund D, E, or F. Okay. So everybody that started either between August and March 1st had to be in and approved on May 1. So that has passed. So again, it's a small, could be a small group of students that you still could have. So you can look, you would still be able to make a claim for the end of the year. Remember, the reimbursement for orphanage is 100%. So any money at all is worth it. We may not go through the program method. We may do something smaller than that for a partial kid like that, but it's still something. So you don't want to just ignore it. Okay, so our 3 method of computing days. What does this mean? There are 3 different options on the claim record that you will select from to determine how you want to get your claim amount to ISB. So you want to say, we spent X amount of dollars to educate Johnny, okay? And this is the amount of money we need back in reimbursement. So with manual and calendar method, it's going to be where the cost is unknown by the system. All right, you're going to have to tell the cost. Okay, so that means that someone is giving you a figure, someone has determined the cost outside of the system, someone is giving you an invoice, something like that. They are telling you for your Fund E orphan, it cost $30,000 this year to educate them, and that's what you need to claim. So you would get 100% back of $30,000. All right. So someone is providing you that information. The system does not know what the cost is. There is not a daily rate. There is nothing to indicate to the system what that is. So you're going to be providing that number. Under manual, there also is not a calendar available for the entity that you are getting this information from. It would be very rare now to not have a calendar, but we will have some scenarios for that. With the addition of the separate public schools, almost all the co-ops are now submitting calendars, so most everyone will have a calendar. So manual would be, again, pretty rare, except for summer term separate schools. They do not have summer term calendars. Same thing with public. So summer records are different. Regular term records, again, you're probably going to be able to use the calendar method when you're providing that cost, because most of the places that would be educating the students are going to have a public calendar. Okay. So the only difference between manual and calendar is that the calendar would put in the days enrolled and the days in session for you. With manual, you would type them in. Both of those, the cost is unknown to the system. So you are providing the cost. So you're taking your $30,000, plugging it in. With manual, you're going to type the days in. With calendar, it will be able to figure the days for you. So those are the two very similar methods of computing days, or in other words, options on the claim record for how you can submit. Okay. So you would have one lone Fund E record, your claim, you choose manual or calendar method, type in the data, and you're done with the claim. So if someone's giving you that figure, that's great. Now, where we spend the majority of our time is on the program method, and we'll get to that here in a few minutes. This is what a manual method looks like for the claim. This is a regular term Fund E orphanage claim. So you're going to have manual. You're going to type in the days enrolled and the days in session. And then down here, you're going to type in the cost for the whole year. So if this child went less than the whole year, you can see that the education cost deflates automatically. So you're typing in the cost for 174 days on manual method. Okay. So the whole year cost is what you need. Okay. Again, manual is going to be pretty rare at this point for regular term. So you also can use calendar method. Calendar method is going to tap into the public calendar. So we're looking at Harrisburg's calendar. It's looking at the approval record and seeing that this is 170 of 170 days for this record, and the cost for the year is $25,500. Okay. Now, if you're getting an invoice and it's not for the full year and you don't know the full year cost, then you can do calendar cost method. And instead of typing in the full year cost, you would be able to type in the education cost. So this is your traditional calendar method. You can see at 167 days, you had to type in the year total. So 25,500 is for 174 days. That's the whole year. If they don't give you the whole year cost, and this may not make sense, a lot of times they do that. They will tell you it costs 25,500 for the whole year. So they'll send you a cost sheet that gives you the 25,500. But if they don't, and you don't know the full year cost and they didn't go all year, so if they send you the child's cost, then you can use calendar cost method and you can type in exactly what they billed you. So again, if you don't know the max amount, you can use calendar cost method and type in exactly what they billed you. This is only going to matter if they aren't there all year. If they're there all year, any of the other methods are fine. Okay, do I have questions on this? So again, these methods, you're going to be given the dollar amount to claim. Someone is telling you it costs X amount of dollars, or they're going to tell you the program cost X amount of dollars for a student that was full-time. Okay, so that's going to determine if you're using calendar, which one you may want to use. Now you can do the math and use regular calendar method as well, but we found that people weren't always catching on to that. So we just want to make sure that if you have any days enrolled less than the days in session, that you're using the right method. Okay, I don't see any questions. I think most of you are waiting for the program method. And that's fine. So the program method, districts will receive a cost sheet for the ADE. They're supposed to. If you're getting an invoice from like another district, they're supposed to give you a cost sheet. It doesn't mean that they do, but that's what they're supposed to give you. So if you're getting an invoice from another district, so say it's not a child that's in your district, it's someone going to a neighboring district, public district, and they're going to send you an invoice. So if you would do manual or calendar method, sometimes they'll give you the cost sheet and it'll tell the total down at the bottom, but not always. So if you see the total for the program, you can use that. That same cost sheet will tell you the child's total as well. So either one. But sometimes if they just hand you something like an invoice, and really they're supposed to give you the cost sheet, but if they don't and they just give you an invoice and say, oh, he was here half a year, he cost $15,000, then I would do the calendar cost method. But yes, they are supposed to give you a cost sheet. That's what you would want for an audit. But again, we can't control that. Okay, so manual and calendar, you know what the cost is. Somebody's giving it to you, whether it's another district, it's your business manager, what have you. Somebody's figured out what the cost is. They tell you what to put in. You put it in the claim, you're done, right? Now, what do you do if they are kids where you don't know the cost? So these would be kids that are inside your district and you're educating them and you have no idea what they cost to educate. They're special ed students. You know, they may have one teacher, they may have 5 teachers, they may be 5% special ed, they may be 80% special ed. You really don't know. So every year, ISB determines what it costs to educate a regular ed student in your district. We call that the per cap, or the per capita district tuition charge, right? That's for regular ed kids. There's no such thing for special ed. So when you have a claim for these orphanage students, you have to determine what they cost. So if someone's not telling you, you have to determine that. Now, with that being said, there are times that we may recommend, oh, just claim the per cap. So when do we recommend that? If it's a speech only student, so if they're in kindergarten through 12th grade, they're speech only, they're 5% or less special ed, I would say just claim per cap. You would do calendar method, type the per cap in, and be done with it. Okay? If they were, let's say 10% special ed, they were in your district from August to October 1st. They're not going to be educated with other orphans, so we're not going to be throwing them into a program anyway. I might say, well, you're probably not going to get much more by doing a program. Just claim per cap. So I won't always recommend that we go through the program for every single student that you don't know the cost of. There are going to be exceptions. So that is where the one-to-one sessions that I do come in handy if you do want some advice or some help with the claims. Okay? So it's going to be a while on per caps. I'm just telling you. I don't know how much longer, but yesterday it sounded like it might be the end of the month. So we will announce it when they come out, and they will be loaded automatically into iStar So you'll be able to look at them. You'll be able to pull them into your program and everything once they are. But right now, again, we're looking at 10 more days, I'm afraid. So I'm not encouraged by that at all. But you can do a lot of things without per caps and be ready to go. So doing per cap claims is really quick. You can go ahead and have everything done for your programs, even without the per caps, and just wait on those to get loaded. So it really doesn't stop you from starting, but it stops you from finalizing. Okay. All right. So key components of the claims. Why would we use program method? Because we don't know what the cost is and we have to figure it out. What is the cost for the orphan that we are claiming or orphans? Okay. So we're going to have our tuition cost sheet that we fill out based on the district costs. There are going to be some unique pieces for each program to that, but a lot of that is the same for the district. We'll look at the student, how to create the student worksheet, the personnel worksheet, the 5066C, the claims computation and tuition cost sheet. That is the receipt. It's kind of like the itemized statement per student for what we have done with the program. The 5066D, I have never had anyone use as a depreciation schedule. It is used if the district purchases any equipment for the program that is over $5,000 in costs. So it's specifically purchased for the program. So you have to depreciate it with that schedule over 5 years. So program, you could be filing you're filing a claim for a district that does have or a co-op that has a public calendar. So they have to have a calendar to use this, and the cost is unknown to the system. So again, there's not a daily rate that the system can see and kind of assume what's going to be put in. The system doesn't know. So when you're looking at therapeutic day kids, you know, the system kind of has an idea of what you're going to plug in. They know the max amount that can be claimed. With this, the system doesn't know it all. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. It's not going to give you a threshold. You know, it's not going to give you an error if if it's too high or too low, things like that. We do have some warnings that come into play, but for the most part, you know, it's free reign here. So that may sound good, but that also means that you're not going to get you have to come up with it all on your own. Okay, so keep that in mind. So what is a program? What's the point of this? Well, the program method is basically going to walk you through how you create the forms, how you get the product. The calculations are going to be done automatically on the claim records once you create this program, and all of the fields will fill in automatically for you. So you don't have to go type in the costs. The only cost you have to type in for program method would be any individual costs because of course those would have to be on the individual record. So if you have a student that has an individual aid, of course you're going to want to go over to your claim and type that in on the claim. We don't want to put that on the program. Okay, we don't want to share the individual aid salary with everyone else in the program because that should just be allocated to the student that they are working with. Okay, but other than that, the program will feed information over to that claim record automatically, and it's much different than what you see with a manual or a calendar method. So essentially, what a program is taking all the costs in the district and putting them together and letting you know what it costs to educate a child. But with this, when we create these groups or these programs to cost out, we have to make sure we're keeping our common educational needs in mind. So we can't just start throwing a bunch of kids together in a program just to make it really expensive and get a lot of money back. There are rules to how you create the program. So oftentimes I see these big, huge programs, and it'll be like resource, and it'll be a grade school, and everybody in the resource in the whole grade school will be in this program. So you might have 15 teachers and goodness knows how many kids attached. That's not really appropriate. So what we want to do is make sure that we're focusing on our orphans first. And we're going to say, okay, we have an orphanage student and we need to look at the orphan and see Who are the teachers providing instruction to the orphans? And that's how we get started with the process. So a lot of times I see these programs that roll over and over and over every year. Some of my districts and co-ops, I understand that. Some of them I don't, because the kids change. The programs should not always be the same. So you want to make sure that you're focusing first and foremost on your list of orphans or your orphanage student. We're going to keep it simple today. We're going to say we have one student. Okay, Johnny's our student and he's our orphan. And what we're going to look at from Johnny is who are his teachers that are providing special ed instruction, not related services, okay? Not their individual aides. Who are their teachers providing special ed instruction, their special ed minutes? Who are those teachers? Okay. And so from that, we then will look to see, okay, is there a program aide in the room with them as well? Who is that person? And that is how we build a program. And then we look to see for the teachers of that orphan, what is their class list? Not necessarily just their caseload, but their class list, all the kids that they see all year. Then when we get those class lists, if you have more orphans than just the one we're starting with, we look to see, is there a relationship there? Are we going to have orphans in those classes where we could make a program that Johnny can be in and another orphan can be in? Okay. So starting with one child can then develop into, you know, a relationship to where we don't have to have a program for every child, but we can see that they have common educational needs. They share a teacher. Okay. So I hope that that kind of makes sense on how you get started. Some things that typically, unless you're tiny, you don't want to see a total school program or a total, like a district wide program. Those are going to be time consuming, they're going to be really large, and they're probably not going to be that profitable. Okay, because you start adding all these teachers in, well, you have to add all their kids in too. So, it just becomes busy work essentially when you're not going to really gain much more. So you have to keep that in mind. Blended classrooms cannot be claimed as programs, but co-taught are acceptable. So what the definition of blended is, when we're talking about this, is if you have a class that has special ed and regular ed students in it and one teacher that's certified to teach both, that is blended. If there are two teachers in that room with regular ed and special ed kids, that's co-taught. So for co-taught, we can do a program because we're going to be able to take the special ed piece, the special ed teacher and the special ed students, and we'll be able to cost that out. If it's one teacher, we can't do that because we can't pull in the regular ed population. So it will never be accurate, okay? So if they are blended, we will not be doing a program. We will not be claiming their tuition. If they are in a blended program, you can look to see if they have any related services that we could get some costs on. So we can still do a small claim, but it will not be on the tuition. A lot of times we run into this with your pre-K kids. Early childhood or pre-K grade level students should never be combined with K through 12. Obviously, they probably do not have common educational needs, so we don't want to see that. Also, they are not entitled to the regular ed per cap and do not create speech-only programs. In most districts, your speech teachers, even the kids, may not always see the same speech teacher, but your speech teachers can see so many students that it's just really difficult to create a program that would be accurate. The last program that I looked at like this was all the speech teachers, and they had over 850 kids attached to that program. It does no good, okay? It's not accurate. So instead, that is where we would do a speech only calculation, or if it's K through 12 and they're 5% or less, you do per cap. So that is kind of some of the do's and don'ts before we get started on the process. So do you have any questions on that before we get into actually doing the data entry? Yes, if you have a co-teacher, you can do co-teaching, you can do the program. And then you'll need the class list for that teacher. So all the special ed kids. So the co-teacher's salary and all of the special ed kids is what you're going to need to do the program. And I'm not naive to the fact that even if it's co-taught, that you don't have teachers that are helping the other population. But, you know, we have to at least be able to show something on paper, that it looks balanced. Can you claim related services on K through 12 students? Some of them you can. So if you're doing the program, you're going to see where related services are going to be pulled in on the expenditures. So if it's something that's on the 5066A, then no. So in other words, you're going to see speech, you're going to see psych, you're going to see things like that are going to be pulled in through the AFR. So for those, no, you're not going to claim them again on the claim record. Okay, that would be double dipping. But if you got invoices like from, say that your OT is contracted out or something like that, or again, the individual aid, then yes, you can claim those as individual costs on the record separately. But it's going to be on the claim record, not in the program. Okay, yeah, if an orphan switches mid-year, it's going to be both classrooms. You have to have all their teachers. Okay. Fund E high school student with 29% special ed. Were they there all year? I would do program method for them. A student cannot be in two programs unless they have two separate approval records. So if they were in one program part of the year and another program part of the year, then one of their approval records can be in one program and the other can be in another program. But if they only have one approval record, you can only put them in one program. Okay. I mean, if you're doing your NDADs properly, then they should be able to be put in more than one. Okay. Wait just a second here. Good questions, guys. I know a lot of you already attended, so I'm not as concerned with less questions today. Okie doke. So this is a to-do list for creating your programs and getting started. You don't necessarily have to do all of this in this order. You do need to create your program first, though. Okay, so we're going to go over how to do all of these things. We're going to be skipping per caps. That's okay. We can make the program without them. We're going to make sure that when we're adding our personnel that we're putting in our salary data. We're going to add our students to the program, make sure that we have our individual costs in there. Add student records, or I'm sorry, we're going to recalculate the days on the S5066B, which is the student program, make sure those days are correct. Then we're going to complete the cost sheet, the 5066A, using our AFR. Then I'll show you how to recalculate the program at the end, and then we'll be able to look at our reports that are available to you. So how do we create the program? How do we get started? Well, we're going to define our program, of course. So we've got that ready to go. We know what our program is. We know who's in the program as far as the teachers, if we have any paras in the program, and we're going to know what the class list is. So all of the students that those teachers see in the whole school year. Okay, so their entire class list. So once we have those things, we're going to go in, we're going to create our program. We're going to go to program definition under utilities and click on the plus sign. You're going to name your program. A lot of times, I have a lot of new people this year and last year, and so we just name our programs by the teachers. You don't have to do that. It's whatever will be recognizable to you. Some people have a methodology to that. That's fine. It's going to print on the reports, so you want to make sure that it's something appropriate to that program. The preparing district, you will select from the drop down. If you are a co-op, you may have more than one to choose from. Calendar should align with that preparing district. You'll hit reload calendar. It'll pull in the from and to date for the public calendar that's on file. So you need to make sure that your calendars are up to date and finalized by the end of school. Per cap to use, you're going to have 3 different options. You can use preparing district if you're doing a bill. You can use other if you are running projections, like right now when we don't have per caps. So it's acceptable usually to add about 10% to last year's per cap if you want to run projections. But 99% of the time when you're doing anything else, which is be making a claim, you're going to want to have the resident district. Okay. Once those are available, it will pull in. So once they load those, it'll pull in automatically. All right, and then contact, last name, first name, and phone number. Are all the calendars submitted and updated in iStar if I click reloaded? There's no guarantee of that. We don't have any control over that. So that's where the district superintendents have to make sure that they have finalized their calendars, and they do not have to finalize them until the last day of school. And a lot of them do not do that then. So we've had to call them as late as like the end of July and make them finalize their calendar to make sure that it's right. A lot of them, well, it makes a difference no matter what. But it really can affect your indicator 11 calculation. So, but no, we cannot guarantee that. So I can show you, let me show you, I'll forget if I don't do this now, where to look. So on our homepage, we just host this under resources. It's the ISB Public School Calendar Inquiry. So you choose the district. It'll pop up in there. Good job, Anna. Approved, final. So theirs is done. Let me see if I can find one that's not. I don't want to pick on anybody. Yeah, there's an amended. And sometimes it will say approved, final, amended. And if the word amended is there, then it's not the final. So it has to look like Anna's did with approved, final. Okay. All right. It's not going to stop you. It's just, like I said, some things we're waiting on. It's just the time of year, 'tis the season. It's not going to stop you from doing any of your work for the program. It's just going to stop it from being finalized. Okay. All right. Can you include contracted psychs to the individual student claim? Yes. Any contracts you can include, because they're not going to be included on the AFR. If you're contracting psych, then I assume you don't have a psych line item. Okay. All righty. Once you create the program, we already talked about that. Once you create the program, I recommend, just so you don't forget, that you go find your orphanage student and that you open up their claim record, okay? And that you make sure that you have put in the individual costs for them. This is something you don't want to forget. So if you do have a contract cost that only applies to them, then you want to come over here and type that in. If they have an individual aide or a one-to-one nurse, make sure you come over and put that here. We don't want to share that salary or that cost with all the kids in the program. If you put them on the program, that's what happens. Okay? So we want to make sure that you are putting them in here. So equipment, aid, contract. If they have special transportation, you'll see this transportation cost field. That means they have a related service of 25 on their IEP. It's on their approval record. You can claim 100% of transportation here for the Fund E. All right, what does AFR stand for? Annual Financial Report for your district. All right, so make sure that you're getting individual costs in if you have them. At this point, I'm going to switch over and go on to my training server so we can walk through this live. You guys can continue to look at the slides if you have them printed out, but typically this is easier to follow if we do a demonstration. Okay, so we're going to build a program. So it takes just a second for me to get onto this trading server, so bear with me. It's a little slow. I want to make sure I don't skip anything. All right. Okay. I'll show you how to find the AFR here in just a minute. Okay. Let me do a little housekeeping here. So I'm just going to use a fake Harrisburg account with fake data. And we're going to create a program real quick. So we're going to, all right. Oop. Okay. Of course, nothing's coming in there, and that's okay. Whoop. So last name, first name, and phone number. Okay. So we've made a program. And again, in no particular order, we're going to choose to add our students first. So what we're going to do is click on this Rolodex here. When you do that, it's going to bring up a search. So if you use caseloads, then you can look up the students like that. If you don't, then you may have to look them up one by one, maybe by school. So hopefully you can find a common thread, but sometimes it's just difficult and you have to do them one by one, okay? So I'm just going to, I don't have a very big database here, so I'm just going to do real quick here. So what you do is you will highlight the student that you want, and you're going to click on select students. So that added my Fund E. But you're also going to look at the teacher's class list, and you're going to add all the other students that that teacher teaches. So all the other special ed students that that teacher has in class, you're going to add. So we would add on some more students here. So I'm going to click on this Rolodex. I'm just going to hit search again. And I'm just going to make it easier, I'm just going to go down through here and find some kids that aren't added yet. And so what you will do when you have a list of students is you're going to do a control click. And whoever is highlighted, you will then come up here and hit, whoop, I went too far, hit the check mark and add those students to the program. All right, so this should be all of the students that are on that teacher's class list. So teacher or teachers, it depends on how many teachers are on the program. So you would add their class list like that. So you should have, again, all of the students that they see in the school year added to this report. So you just keep searching and adding those students. Okay, next, we're going to add the teachers and then any possible program aides. So if there is a program aide, they should be on the personnel file, and so should the teachers. If you have not added new staff members under personnel this year and you need them for this program, you're going to have to add them first. Yes, the class list, this class list will be orphan and non-orphanage students. It might be one orphan and then the rest of the kids may be a different fund code, typically the Fund A. Okay. All right, would the system let me know if one of my students is not attached to a program? It's not going to tell you that. I mean, I think there's a report you can run to see if they are, but not every student should be attached to a program. So you know, you need to think about what your intent is when you're looking for that. So again, not every student needs to be in the program. We're only putting students in the program that are receiving services by staff members that are teaching orphans. There's no other purpose of the program other than to cost out claims or send bills. All right, so next for personnel, we're going to add new personnel record. So I'm just going to do a search again because I don't have that many people in here. You can search specifically if you want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a teacher and a couple of paras just to spice it up. Click on the check mark. Okay, so I've added 2 teachers and 2 paras. Now I'm going to click on the edit button and I'm going to open up salary data. And I'm going to type in the local salary for this teacher. Now, if the teacher is paid by anything besides local funds, then you would have to show that. So we're saying their total salary is $56,300. 56,000's from local, 200's from something else, 100's from federal. If there's any split, then you need to do that. Okay? If it's just all local, then you wouldn't have anything in these other 2 fields. Your evidence-based funding, it's going to be $9,000 for teachers and $3,500 for paras because that's the reimbursement that you're getting. If you suspect that you have had an increased special ed staff since the 16-17 school year, then you can ask us to calculate to see if we can put in a different number, a lower number for that offset. But for us to do that, you have to have your personnel done. All right, if the student is in one classroom for the first half of the year, then moves to another classroom for the second half of the year, do I put both teachers and both paras along with all the students in both classrooms in the program? Yes, exactly what you would do. So it revolves around the child. Okay. To add a teacher, you would just go through the traditional add process if they're not in the personnel. It's salary and benefits for the staff. So gross salary, whatever it costs to educate or to employ them. So whatever it costs the district. So whatever portion of benefits you pay, then you would include. Okay. For the evidence-based funding amounts, the EBF amounts, for teachers, you put in 9,000. For paras, you put in 3,500. That is the estimate of what you get back in reimbursement for them. If you suspect that you have had an increase in special ed staff since the 15-16 school year, then you can ask us to see if you can put in less, because it's a deduction. So it's money that you're getting, so we're deducting it off the cost of the program. So you would want to be able to put in less than 9,000, less than 3,500. So if you suspect that your special ed staff has increased since the 15-16 school year, then it would stand to reason that you're maybe not getting as much back. But for us to determine that, you have to have all of your personnel done. So your personnel approvals have to be done. All right, so back again on the program in general. There's no point in doing this if you do not have an orphanage student that you need to claim. If you do not have any orphans, you will not be doing this. So yes, every program should have at least one orphanage student in it. Okay, I have a para who has been approved to teach this year. Of course, her salary is lower due to her starting later in the year as the teacher. When I enter evidence-based funding, it will only allow me to use the para rate for evidence-based funding. Is that okay? So what do you mean by she's approved to teach? Is she qualified to teach? Does she hold the certificate? Does she hold the Pell now? Or they just approved her to teach because they didn't have somebody else to do it? Uh-oh. Okay, where I'm going with this, Tracy, is that they have to be approved to be on the program. So if they're not approved to teach, if they don't hold the professional educator license, then they can't count as a teacher. She's approved as a teacher. Okay. Then you need to code her as a teacher. And it should let you put in more. I don't know. We may have to work on that one together if it's tricky. Yes, you can add salary before you get per cap data. All right, so on the program, this is a good question. On the program, we are not adding administrators. You will not be adding a principal, assistant principal, and you will not be adding related service providers. So you don't need to worry about evidence-based funding for them. All right. The only time you do that is if it's a completely separate school, and most of those are Fund S. So we sometimes allow that under those circumstances, but it has to be a completely 100% special ed school to do that. If so, They're all still 9,000. Okay. Sorry. They are. Yeah, those are they're 9,000 then. The only ones that are 3,500 are the paras. Everyone else is 9,000. Okay. So I don't want anybody to get confused. They are a separate 100% special ed school. They can do that. But under normal circumstances, in a regular program, you cannot add administrators. Okay. All right. So that's why we have, again, our 2 teachers and our 2 program paras here. Okay. And then you can edit from here the claim record. So you could come over here and put in individual costs if you need to. All right. So we would continue adding in the teacher salaries. Okay, how do you get the teacher salaries? You'll have to get those from your business office or from your bookkeeper. So you would continue from here doing the edit and adding in the salary data. These are the only personnel that you put salary data in for. The rest of your database does not need them. So you are only putting in salary for staff members that are attached to programs because they're educating orphans. For all the other providers, you will not have salary data. In fact, it won't even allow you to access it from personnel. You have to go through here to even put in salary data now. So it is not used, it is not needed unless we are attaching them to a program, and it's only to calculate program costs. So next, we're going to start the 5066A. When you open this, right now, you should be able to hit the reloads on lines 1 through 5. They went ahead and loaded everything for this year, I believe, except for line 6, of course, because we don't have the per cap yet. Let's see. I don't know what it is. Okay. So line 6 is probably not going to load, right? Okay. So you will do a reload on all of those. Next, you will load. Click that button. It will put in line 7. Okay. So then we're going to go pull up our AFR because these expenditures for the district, these district costs, we're going to get the numbers from the annual financial report for the district, and we're going to plug in the costs based on our instructions. So you have 2 options for instructions. One, you can go to our website under manuals and guides. It's the Students with Disabilities Claim and Reimbursement Instructions. Got a fancy new cover. We're going to go to about page 17 is where it starts talking about the functions. Depends on how you're looking at it. The thumbnail is going to be 17 and 18. The page is 15 and 16. And it's going to tell us what we can use when we're looking at our annual financial report versus what we can't for costs. So the other option, if you don't already have one of these, is to get a flip book. The flip book will tell you, I have an old one, so I don't think the colors are exactly the same, but mine is this green tab, and it tells you that you can always include certain columns. I'll show you what they look like. Those columns have names. They're called objects. So for objects 100, 200, and 400, and 600, we can always use the dollar amounts there. We can sometimes use purchase services, which is in object 300. And it gives us a list of when we can use those. And that list will coincide with the function numbers that are on your 5066A. And then it tells you your special lines. So when we're putting numbers in, everything has to go in the second column for regular ed on that sheet. except lines 9, 12, 13, and 18. So speech, psych, special area admin, social work, those can go under the first column for special ed. Everything else goes in the second column. Again, unless you are a separate school. Okay? So the instructions are here. And gotta get back to my program. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to be doing again is aligning these function numbers with what we see on our annual financial report. So how do we get to the annual financial report? Right now on our homepage, under Hot Topics, so I'm just on our homepage, hbug.k12.il.us, you're going to see how to access AFR, accessing AFR. We'll click on that. And there's a link here. And then the instructions tell you what to do after this. Okay? So I'm going to click on the link. If you need the instructions later, this is where you can come to. So it's the AFR. Going all the way down to 2025, you use the previous year's report. We're going to go to school districts. And then I'm just going to search for Harrisburg's. And so you're going to open up the Excel. All right, I have a Fund F student that started on August 19th and it ended September 24th. Can we still claim them with their end date being pre-March 2nd? Did you have all that done before May 1st? I mean, did the student exist on May 1st? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you just can't add anything now that would be in that time frame. Yeah, you can claim them. Okay, so sometimes you have to hit this enable editing. And then we're going to look at the bottom. Sorry, everything's jumping real weird. Okay. At the bottom, we want to go to the tab that's called Expenditures 16-24. And we're going to start on line 38. So a lot of times you will see that attendance and social work are combined into a function called 2110. I don't know what is going on with this thing. Okay. All right. So instead of what your cost sheet looks like, where you have the 2112 and the 2113, they have combined attendance and social work under a different function number, and that is fine. So what we will do with that is we will look at our flip book and see, or in our instructions, what can we include? So which of these numbers can we include? The yellow is the total for the expenditure, okay? So if you follow it all the way over, the yellow is the total. So we said earlier, I'm going to scroll up so you can see, we can always use objects 100, 200, 400, and 600. So any figures in those columns we are able to use. So you can kind of count here, 100, 200, 400, 600, right? Sometimes we can use 300. That's when we look at our instructions or look on your flip chart to see when can we use 300. 2110 is not listed. So that means that we have to take your total and subtract out the purchase services. Okay? So what do we do with that number? So once we subtract out the purchase services, we're going to go back into iStar. And since we are doing 2110, we're going to scroll down. First thing, we're going to go to line 24. We're going to click that box, put a check in it. We're going to type in our function. We're not using 12 or 13, we're using 2110. Our flip book and our instructions also tell us that we can only put expenditures 9, 12, 13, and 18 under special ed, right? So this is not any of those numbers. We're on line 24. So we have to change this to regular ed, and then we would type in the amount. So it would be that yellow total minus the purchase services. So I'm just going to pretend that I did that math, and I'm going to type in 100,000. What people miss is this button here, add other. You click on that. Okay? So then we go up, and what this is saying is that of these costs, based on the information on this program, $2,976 of this function is being applied to this program. Okay. So then we go back up to the top. Obviously, 8 and 9 are 0. So we're going to start on 10 with guidance services. We're going to look at and see again, we cannot include purchase services. It's not on our list, but we're going to go back over. If I can find my spreadsheet here. Okay, so now we're going to go back here and we're going to look at guidance services. It's 100 and 200. We know we can always include the costs in 100 and 200, right? So we're just going to take this. We're going to type in 328,436 under regular ed. Next, health services, 2130. It shows you on your list that you can include purchase services if it has it. So we're going to look at 2130. It's 100, 200, 300, 400. So we're good there. We can take the total because, again, the instructions say for health services, we can include purchase services. So the third column can be included here. All right. So we're going to take the 190, 596. Okay. If you want a flip book, go to our website, click on Want Customized Training, Register Now. Fill this information out and select Claim Flipbook. Make sure you give me your address. Okay, make sure you fill out your address. This is also where you come if you want claims training, one-to-one training. So you fill out what you need, what you want, and I will get back to you. Okay. So next we would do psych services. We would continue doing what we're doing back and forth with that 5066A over to the AFR. Okay. Psych services, it says it can be in the special ed column. I don't think Harrisburg has anything though. Yeah, they don't. So they're members of a co-op. So they're probably going to have it under purchase services or something, one of an additional ad. Okay. Regardless, you will continue going down doing that same thing. If you can include purchase services, great. If not, take it out. There are going to be times where they're going to have objects 500, 700 may get thrown in. You've got to take that out. So if it's not 100, 200, 400, 600, then you've got to back it out unless it tells you otherwise in the instructions. So you're going to go all the way down through here and do everything the same through line 23. But when you get to line 26, it's going to ask you for all 2540 expenditures. So since it says all, what you will do is come through. I'm going to hit Control F as in Frank and do a find. And I'm going to type in 2540. And what you're going to see is that you're going to have multiple entries, so multiple rows for this, and you will be able to add all of them together. So what you would do is say, okay, here's the first one. For 2540, it shows on your flip chart you can use purchase services. So 1, 200, 300, 400, but here's a 500. You're going to have to take that out. Once you take that out, scratch down that number, and then you're going to hit next. And then you're going to see on the next one 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. So for this one, you're going to have to take 500 out. So get that and then scratch that number down. And then you're going to go to the next one. You're going to do this 5 times. Here's a 200. Write that number down. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 400. Write that number down. And when you get back to where you started, so there's another one. You should have 5 entries. Okay? So 5 entries. You will add all those up together, and that's what you're going to put on line 26. Find out what each district paid for this. No. If you're like with a co-op or whatever, and you don't have a psych or speech line, then you're going to want to look on, it tells you the other things that you can add in the instructions. You'll want to look under purchase services or other support services. So if you continue looking in your instructions, you can add under other more than just 2110. So it tells you in your flip book on the second page there. Well, I've ripped mine all apart, but anyway, there's the one that's called lines 24 and 25, and it will tell you what you can put there. So you could probably go out and find those purchase services, and that's going to represent your psych or your speech or whatever services you're paying for. But you can't just put their salary on there. No, you can't do that. Okay. All right, there is no reasoning on how to determine special ed versus regular ed. It's just in the instructions. You can put special ed, you can put the numbers under the special ed column on lines 9, 12, 13, and 18. So it's really no reasoning. It's just is what it is. It's just what the instructions say. Okay. All right. Where did I get the 56,300? This is going to be, this was from the load right here. That's the personnel salaries that came over from the personnel report. Remember, I only put one in. It should have been higher, but I didn't. So I had 2 teachers and 2 paras over there, but I only put in the salary for one just for demonstration. So that comes over, you hit load, and that comes over automatically. All right, is line 26 the only line that can be found in multiple places on the AFR? It's not the only one that it has multiple places. It's the only time you can use all the places. Yeah. You can only use that section that starts on line 38. If they don't have their AFR yet for 24-25, you need to find out the timeline. Worst case, you'll use previous year, so you can use 24. All right. How to request individualized training. You're going to go on our homepage under Want Customized Training and fill this out. All right, for the expenditures, do we go lines? It's 8 through 24 based off the AFR. Yes. All of these will be the same for the district. So the claim flip book is something you can request. It's just a synopsis in this little flip of what's in the instructions. You don't have to have it. It's in the instructions too. Okay. And Talia, you said what function did you hit? And I'm not sure what I had a bunch of questions all at once. So if you can tell me what you mean, I'm not sure. Okay. So once we get down to line 26, where we would enter that expenditure, we would then reload line 27. I think this is loading for you guys right now. I'm on training, but I think that is loading. Line 29, you will put in the number of teachers that you attach to the program. Okay. So I attached 2 teachers and 2 paras. So this will be 2 because we have 2 teachers on the program. Down at the bottom, then you'll go all the way to 35. You're going to hit reload. It's going to pull in your evidence-based funding and anything that was not paid from local funds. And then you're going to hit save. Now, I did not get everything in, so we're going to go over and look at more of a legitimate program here because $990 would be super low. Wouldn't be worth your time. So we'll look at the good one that I built, which should match your notes, hopefully. Okay, so when you get all of that done, you're going to hit this calculator, and that's going to go out and calculate the claim. Okay, so what it would do is we're going to go down here and look at our orphanage student, and what it should do is then go over and calculate this ADE cost. All right. Now, I'm just disconnected from the world on this training server, but when we did that on production with some people last week, it was immediate. So it should not take any time at all for that to happen. All right. What function you hit on AFR report to get total for line 26 on the cost sheet? Oh, I hit Control F just to do a find and typed in 2540. And then I just would hit next, find next. There's 5 entries. Okay, when you hit the calculator, it's going, normally what you would see is it would plug in this 43,778, and then it would go out and calculate the student record. Okay, for line 30, it will default to depreciation. If you do rent, then you need to change it. Most of all, I've never had anybody rent. So most of the time it's a district-owned classroom. So you need to keep it on depreciate if you own. It's just automatic. So that's the default. Okay. But for the most part, once you put in line 29, you're pretty much done. So when you're looking at these, a lot of them are going to look the same from program to program. But what will be unique will be line 1, line 7, and line 29. Those will be the unique things about the programs. Okay, per district. Okay, for all of the lines in iStar, we can only use numbers from AFR on lines 38 through 133. For everything except operation and maintenance, yes. So 2600, I don't think through 133. I don't think it goes that far. It's 38 to 2600. 38 to 74. Unless you're going to pull in a 4150 or a 5100. Those are the other ones that you can add in. But other than that, yeah, lines 38 to 74. I've seen people find 1200 in here and pull it over. That's the instruction for the whole district. So, I mean, if that puts it into perspective. Which would be incorrect. Okay. All right. So essentially what we would be saying when we get to the bottom of this report is that to educate one student that's in this program all year long, 100% special ed, it's $43,778 to educate them. That was the whole purpose of this, right? We needed to know what it costs to educate a child. So what will happen when we hit that recalculate button is that it will go, the system will go out, tell you, it tells you, well, quickly it told you what it was doing. But what it was doing is calculating the claim for the student, which was the whole purpose of this whole project. Okay, we needed to know for our orphan, what should the claim be? And again, I don't think mine's working right, but it should calculate the cost here for them. Okay. So now you'll be able to run your reports from here. So you can run your 5066C, which would be showing you what or how, I guess, the claim was calculated for your orphan. So you'll find that under this cloud, under the students, and it's print student worksheet. Excuse me. So that would show what the claim for the orphan is and how it's calculated if you need that. You don't need it, you don't need to print it, but it'll always be here on file. After July 31st, the program definition locks for the school year. It will not change. Something that you do in this year in your program definition will not affect previous years. Okay? In addition, there is an orphanage report. It's up here at the top under reports. You'll go to student for your type, and you're going to change your category to reimbursement claims. And you can do student reimbursement by fund. If you want to look at what you had last year in reimbursement, you can go to your computation sheets. But student reimbursement by fund. You would do orphanage for payment type. Okay. Now, with that, we will be sending out emails and telling you what errors you have for the students that are entered. So we will do our call campaign. We are not sure. We're going to talk about when we're going to start those next week. Just want to make sure I didn't forget anything here. Looks like we got everything in the notes. I think we're going to talk Monday about when we're going to start sending those emails. So we will send you emails for errors that you have on your orphanage claims, letting you know where you stand, those kinds of things. If you do want a flip book, remember, or an individual training or both, please go over, sign up for that. Make sure you give me your address, okay? So I will take any questions you guys have. But other than that, that's all the material we have for today. So I will just wait a few minutes to see if anybody has questions. Our regular enrolled in session and regular days in session. Enrolled in session may not always match if they didn't go every day of the year. Okay. All 2540s can be used. Just remember, you got to take out purchase, or you got to take out capital outlay, or if there's a function 700. Okay, does this connect with report in ISB? I don't know what that means. I don't know what you mean by your question. Does this connect with report in ISB? For a pre-K student, do we set to 0.5 or divide their salary or benefits in half? Either one. So if you're going to do an AM program, then you would just cut the salary in half and leave the FTE at 1. If you're going to do a full day program, then you use the full salary and the AM kids have 0.5 and the PM kids have 0.5. Just depends on how you're going to set up the program. It's up to you. All right, orphanage tuition report 18.3. No, that is for regular ed students, not special ed. So we don't do 18.3. You're going to talk to funding on that at ISB. All right, just to clarify, I have a Fund Code E student that moved in mid-year. Student is speech only and 2% special ed. Is this a scenario where I would not create a program and use the per cap data with the calendar cost method? Is this correct? It is correct, but I would use the calendar method and type in the per cap, the whole per cap. It'll calculate on its own the claim for you. But yes, absolutely, that's what I would do. Even if they were all year, I would do the same thing. All right, for a summer DE and F claim, we are holding summer school due. All right, for a summer DE and F claim, we aren't holding summer school due to lack of staff, but still offering services like OT-PT speech. Can we claim those in the summer DEF claims? Yes. Yes. I mean, it's still part of their IEP and they have summer term, so yes. I just had to think about that for a second. I don't really know why. The due date, corrections are due. You have through July 31st on corrections. Okay, so a pre-K student who is only an orphan through November, he was in a blended classroom, can't have a program, correct. You would look to see if he had any related services that we could put on for a small claim. If so, you calculate them like you do speech only. So you get that salary and the minutes. I don't think I showed you guys where the speech only stuff was. It's on our website too. Everything's under hot topics that's been discussed today, just as a blanket statement. But this speech only calculation, K through 12 and the pre-K one is right here. So that's what you would do is replace the speech teacher on here with whatever related service they might have. So you can do that. Oh yeah. Yeah, then do speech only and transportation. Yep. Add them together, you can do a calendar cost claim for that. And I can help you if you need me to. Okay. I don't see any more questions, so we're at an hour and a half. I will let you guys go. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk. If you have questions, let me know. If you want the individual training, I will get back to you. I'm going to let you know now. I'm booked through the end of this month and taking appointments the second week of June, I think. I might have some left the first week of June, but I'm booked the rest of May for the most part. So I will get back to you via email hopefully today. And I want to thank you guys so much for the good questions, for coming to the session. And we will see you at the next one. Tomorrow is Fund F if you want to come for that one. So have a good day, guys. Bye bye.